This is a story I never thought I'd be telling. And even now, when I look back on it, I can hardly believe what happened. It all started with my 13-year-old daughter, Lily, who had to be rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. But what shocked me more than anything were the words that came from my own parents. Words that, to this day, I can't erase from my mind. They told my daughter, to her face, that she should have died instead. And, in an unforgivable twist, they said she was nothing but a burden on our family because she struggled with her mental health. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Instead, I made one phone call. A single call that would change everything. Fast forward 6 months, and they came to my doorstep, begging for forgiveness. But what I did next left everyone around me in shock. You might be wondering how a hospital visit turned into the moment I severed ties with my own parents forever. Well, let me tell you. It began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Lily came home from school, clutching her stomach, her face pale with pain. "Mom, something's wrong," she said, her voice trembling. I thought maybe it was just her period or food poisoning. But when I placed my hand on her stomach and she screamed, I knew this was serious. Without wasting another second, I drove her straight to the emergency room. By the time we arrived, she was sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for breath. The doctors worked fast. Within an hour, they had a diagnosis: appendicitis. But it was worse than we thought. Her appendix was about to rupture. "We need to operate now," the doctor said. My heart nearly stopped. She's only 13, I thought, as if that somehow mattered. But the doctor's words were calm, yet stern. "If we don't do this now, it could be fatal." With shaky hands, I signed the consent form. They wheeled Lily away, and for the first time, I saw just how small and fragile she looked on that gurney. "Mom," she whispered, her voice faint. "I'll be right here, baby," I promised, holding her hand until they took her into the operating room. The surgery was supposed to take an hour. Instead, it stretched on for 3 hours. The doctors later explained that complications arose. The appendix had already begun to rupture, and they had to clear out the infection. Finally, they told me, "She's stable now, but we'll keep her for observation." I collapsed into a chair in the waiting room, my hands shaking uncontrollably. That's when I called my parents. I thought they'd want to know. I thought they'd care. My mom answered after 3 rings. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom. It's me. Lily's in the hospital. She had emergency surgery," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end. "What kind of surgery?" she asked, her tone strangely indifferent. "Appendicitis. It ruptured. They had to operate right away," I said, my voice breaking. Another long silence. Then she asked, "Is she alive?" "Yes, but, well, then it's fine," my mom replied dismissively. "You're being dramatic. It's not that serious." I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. "Mom, her appendix ruptured. It could have killed her." I couldn't keep the frustration out of my voice. "And she's fine," my mom countered. "Kids get their appendix out all the time. It's routine." Routine? I thought, my mind racing. This wasn't routine. It was an emergency. But before I could say anything else, she added, "Well, you didn't wait, so what's the problem?" I was stunned into silence. "The problem is my daughter just had major surgery, and I thought you'd want to know," I finally said, struggling to hold back my tears. "We know now. You just told us," she said. "Are you coming?" I asked, desperate. "To the hospital?" My mom sounded genuinely confused. "Why would we do that?" "Because Lily's your granddaughter, Mom," I said, my voice trembling. "She's scared and in pain. She might want to see you." There was another pause, and then my dad's voice came on the line. He'd picked up the other phone. "Rachel," he said in that stern voice of his, "your mom's right. This isn't a big deal. You're overreacting. Lily's fine. She's in recovery." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "She's not fine," I shouted. "She's 13. She's terrified. She just had surgery." "We're not driving 2 hours for an appendix," my dad replied flatly. "Call us when it's actually serious." and then they hung up. I just stared at my phone, unable to comprehend the conversation I'd just had. After a full minute of silence, I went back to Lily's room. She was awake, groggy from the anesthesia, tears streaming down her face. "It hurts, Mama," she whispered. "I know, baby," I said, stroking her hair. "They're going to give you more medicine soon." "Where's Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked, her voice small, hopeful. I froze. My heart shattered. They couldn't make it tonight, sweetie. They said they'll call you tomorrow," I lied, my throat tight with emotion. She nodded and closed her eyes, too tired to question it. But I knew, deep down, she wanted them there. And that killed me. 2 days later, Lily was still in the hospital. The infection had been worse than expected. She needed IV antibiotics and constant monitoring. She was in pain, bored, and lonely. That's when my parents finally showed up. I was in the cafeteria, trying to grab a quick coffee when I received a text from the nurse. "Your parents are here visiting Lily." I dropped my cup and ran to her room. When I entered, my mom and dad were standing next to Lily's bed. She looked confused but happy to see them. My mom was wearing that fake smile she always put on when she was pretending everything was fine. "Well, you look fine," my mom said, her voice too bright. "See, I told your mother this wasn't serious." Lily's face fell. "It was pretty serious, Grandma," she said quietly. "The doctor said my appendix almost exploded." My dad waved his hand dismissively. "Doctors always exaggerate. Makes them sound more important." I felt a lump form in my throat. My daughter had just been through hell, and they couldn't even acknowledge it. My mom sat on the edge of the bed, leaning in as if she was about to say something important. "Lily, sweetie, we need to talk to you about something," she said. I immediately stepped forward. "Mom, not now," I said, my voice hard, but she ignored me completely. "Lily," my mom said, her voice low, "your mother tells us you've been seeing a therapist." Lily glanced at me nervously, unsure of how to respond. "Yeah," she whispered, "for my anxiety." "That's been going on for how long now?" my mom asked, her tone almost accusatory. "Almost a year," Lily said quietly. My dad crossed his arms. "That's what we thought," he muttered. I could feel the anger rising in me. "What are you trying to say?" I asked, my voice tight with control. "Lily, do you know how much that's costing your mother? Do you know how much trouble you're causing?" Before I could stop it, I stepped in front of Lily, blocking her from their view. "Get out," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "Both of you, right now." "Rachel, don't be ridiculous," my mom said, as though she couldn't understand why I was so upset. "We're having a conversation with our granddaughter," my dad added, his tone condescending. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "You're upsetting her. Get out." My dad's face hardened. "We drove 2 hours to see her," he said. "We're not leaving until we say what we came to say." "Then say it and leave," I snapped. My mom turned back to Lily, ignoring me entirely. And that's when she said something that, to this day, I cannot forget. "Lily, honey," she began, her voice too calm. "You need to understand something. Your anxiety, your depression, all of this mental illness stuff, it's very hard on your mother. It's hard on all of us. You're only 13. You shouldn't be this much work." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Excuse me?" My dad nodded in agreement. "She's right." And then, with a coldness that froze my very soul, my dad looked at Lily and said, "Honestly, when we heard about the surgery, we thought maybe it would be better if—" My stomach dropped. "If what?" I demanded, my voice a raw whisper. He looked directly at Lily. "If you hadn't made it." The room went completely still. Lily's face crumpled, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "If the surgery had gone wrong," my mom said, still sounding disturbingly reasonable, "it would have solved a lot of problems." Lily's sobs were immediate, gut-wrenching, and they ripped through my heart. It was a sound I never thought I'd hear, not from her. "You're very difficult, Lily. You're expensive. You're bad for this family," my mom continued, her words like daggers. Maybe it would have been better for everyone if you just... She trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Lily broke into sobs, those heart-wrenching sobs that only come from complete devastation. In that moment, I snapped. Without thinking, I crossed the room and grabbed my mother's arm, pulling her toward the door. "Get out," I said, my voice low and deadly. "Get out right now, or I'll call security." My dad tried to protest. "Rachel, I pointed at the door. "Out, now, or I do something we'll all regret." They left. My mom looked offended, like I'd embarrassed her at a dinner party. My dad looked annoyed, as if I were being unreasonable. And Lily, my sweet, precious 13-year-old daughter, wept in my arms, asking why Grandma and Grandpa hated her. I held her. I held her through her broken sobs. I held her through her questions I wasn't ready to answer. And in that moment, I made a decision I should have made years ago. When Lily finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, I stepped into the hallway and made a phone call. Not to my parents, but to my divorce lawyer. I wanted them gone. I told my lawyer I wanted to cut my parents off completely. I wanted a restraining order if they ever tried to contact Lily. I needed everything documented in case they tried to claim grandparent visitation rights. My lawyer didn't argue. She'd met my parents once, and she understood what I was dealing with. It took us 2 weeks, but we made it official. A no-contact order, with legal documentation of everything they'd said. A paper trail just in case they ever tried to force their way back into our lives. And for 6 months, we had peace. Beautiful, peaceful silence. Lily began to heal. Her anxiety decreased. She smiled more. She laughed again. She started school and was doing well, really well. She even made friends, something I hadn't thought possible a year ago. She began to feel like herself again. One afternoon, she looked up at me with a soft smile and said, "We're better off without them." And I nearly burst into tears because she was right. We were better off without them. It had taken us months to get to this point, but we were finally thriving. Then, one day, out of nowhere, they showed up at our house. I saw them through the window. My mom carrying flowers, my dad holding a card. My heart dropped into my stomach. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What do you want, Rachel?" my mom asked, as though she were completely entitled to be here. "We need to talk," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "We've had time to think, and..." "No," I interrupted. "You've had time to think? We've had time to heal. You don't get to just walk back into our lives." "We're sorry," my dad said, cutting me off before I could say another word. "We said things we didn't mean. We want to make it right." I laughed, but it was bitter, ugly. "You told my daughter she should have died. You told her she was bad for our family. You said that to a 13-year-old in a hospital bed." My mom's face hardened, the coldness coming back in full force. "We were under stress. We didn't mean it literally," she said, her voice cracking. "Get off my property," I said, my voice firm and unyielding. "Now. You have 30 seconds to leave or I'll call the police." My mom stood there for a moment, her face red with frustration. "But we're family," she pleaded, her voice breaking as she tried to hold on to some shred of control. "We're still family." "No," I said, my voice ice cold. "Not anymore. Lily is my family. You are nothing." I closed the door in their faces and locked it. I watched through the window as they stood there, frozen in disbelief. After what felt like forever, they finally turned and walked away. Lily came downstairs a few minutes later. "Were those..." she started, her voice quiet. "Yeah," I said, my throat tight. "Are they gone?" "Yeah, baby, they're gone," I replied, my heart aching for the years of hurt that led to this moment. "Good," she said, her voice steady. "Thanks for picking me, Mom." "I picked you the second you were born," I said, pulling her into a tight hug. "And I'll pick you every single time. It's been 6 months now, and things have only gotten better. Lily's anxiety is under control. She's excelling in school. She has friends who truly care about her. And I don't feel guilty, not even a little bit. Because the day my parents told my daughter she should have died was the day they stopped being her grandparents. They stopped being my parents, too. Some things you just can't come back from. Some words you can't unsay. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Lily knows that she matters, that she is loved, that she is not too much, not too difficult, and definitely not bad for anyone. She's perfect exactly as she is. A few months ago, they tried to send cards. I returned them unopened. They showed up at Lily's school, but the school had already been notified and turned them away. Then, they sent a letter through their lawyer, trying to force us to let them see Lily. My lawyer sent one back that shut them down completely. They haven't tried to reach out since, and I don't feel guilty about it, not even for a second. Lily and I, we're better. We're stronger. We have a bond that can't be broken. And my parents, they lost that. They lost her. They lost me. And they'll never get us back.